Good evening, everybody. If you would take your seats, we'll start with the program in just a moment. I'd like to welcome you all. My name is Gerhard Apfelthaler. I'm the Dean of the School of Management here at California Lutheran University. I'd like to welcome all of our students, our alums, our faculty members, members of various School of Management. See, we have Jay Bradshaw here from our Advisory Council. We have Felix Wang here from our Hospitality Advisory Council. We do have, who else do we have here? I saw Haider Alavani on the list. He's not arrived yet, but a welcome to him anyway. And of course, before I forget, we have Jillette, who is a regent, a member of the Board of Regents at California Lutheran University. Welcome to our event tonight. The numbers are just on the weekend. I'm not sure if anybody has seen that. The LA Times has reported on the hospitality industry. The numbers for 2016 again confirmed how important the hospitality industry is for the greater Los Angeles region. There were about 48 million visitors to Los Angeles. A large portion of whom come from outside of the United States. And just for Los Angeles County, and it doesn't even include Ventura County, the net positive effect of that economy is around 33 billion US dollars. Not even to speak about the employment effects. So it's just natural for a school of management at a progressive liberal arts university like California University to engage with that industry, to help that industry grow and stay successful. And that's why, and I think I can say that because we're just among us, we're just family. It's not official yet, but California Lutheran University has been working on a program in hospitality management that will, pending one more layer of faculty approval in 2 weeks, online in the fall. So starting from the fall this year, we'll be enrolling students that hopefully will make the hospitality industry in this region and beyond very successful. We have an exciting program for you tonight with exciting speakers from major brands such as the Disney Corporation, the Cheesecake Factory, and the Four Seasons Hotel. But before we go into introducing our program and the panelists, I'd like to introduce the most important person in this room because he's my boss. The president of California Lutheran University, Dr. Chris Kimball.
Thank you, Gerhard. I would like to add my welcome to everyone in this latest evening in the series on tourism and hospitality. And I want to commend the dean and his team in the School of Management and their in moving this hospitality and tourism program forward. We're all anxious for it to get the final approval and get launched because it meets an important need, and I think it's something that is well positioned to do in an excellent way. So Gerhard, thanks to you and your entire team for doing this. I want to offer a special welcome to anybody who is here for the first time. I know I got to walk in with Dave, who hadn't been here before. Is there anybody else who this is the first time on campus? We've got a few others. Welcome, and we hope that you come back again sometime and find all kinds of reasons to join us. Also, a special welcome to our students from Royal and Channel Islands High Schools. Always great to have you here, and as you think about the college choice process, stop right here, just come to Cal Lutheran. Easy peasy, no problem. As the dean said, the university has some core commitments that I think are evident here tonight and evident in this kind of work. One of which is perhaps unlike the traditional liberal arts college that was withdrawn from the world, often put up on a hill where people spent years in quiet contemplation. We do some contemplation too, but not so quietly. Cal Lutheran is all about engaging the world, serving the needs of the community, and through the School of Management, serving the needs of the business community. It's all about the relationship that goes from the campus out and from out back into the campus. And this program, this series speaks to that. I also do have to note that one of my bosses, Jillette, is here. Gerhard introduced her. She's head of the Greater Caneo Chamber of Commerce, one of the great chambers in the country. Jill's commitment to the university and to our region really speaks to that relationship of campus and community mutually serving each other. And it is a special delight. Tonight we have visiting for the first time in the region for a long time, someone, I can't go through his entire resume. City council member for years, mayor, 12 years of vice president, built this university. It's a joy to welcome back Mr. Dennis Jillette. If you just give everybody a wave. Anybody who knows Thousand Oaks and Cal Lutheran, both of which are about 50 years old, from the age of 2 in those 50 years, was really a parent of this community, of this university, and it's just a special joy to have you here tonight, Denny. Thank you so much for being here. With that, let me give things back to Gerhard so we can get on with the program. And for being here, it's going to be a wonderful night.
Thank you, Chris. As I dropped my papers, I forgot to introduce 2 people from our Hospitality Advisory Board. Jim Capp of the Four Seasons Westlake Village. Jim, where are you? Oh, over here. And Sulin Rubalcava of the Ventura County Office of Education. Thanks for your support and for being here, to you and all the other council members. And the next person I'm going to introduce is also very important to me. You come second to the president, though, Udo. Udo Schlentrich has been with us in the development of the hospitality management major all the way. He's not only a veteran of the hospitality industry, where he has been a senior executive at many 4- and 5-star properties around the world. He has been a major developer of new brands. He has been a turnaround manager for major existing brands. And later in his career, he started to give back, got a PhD, went back to academia, started to teach at the University of New Hampshire. He retired last year. And since then, he has been helping us putting together a world-class program. Udo Schlentrich will be our moderator for this evening. Udo, the floor is yours, and many thanks.
We will pass, of course, a test out a little later to figure out that you paid attention. I'm delighted that President Kimball was so kind to be here in person to endorse this program. Hospitality and tourism is an industry which has been part of the better part of my life. I was raised in Austria in a hotel by my family. I'm passionate about this particular industry. It is international in scope. You deal with people from all walks of life. And it is an industry, if you have passion in it, you can have an incredible career in it. To start a new program is never easy. I'm here because I saw also Gerhard's passion in launching this program. There's no better place to launch a program than this university. I did my graduate work and got another degree at Cornell. Anybody who knows Cornell, it's in Timbuktu, somewhere in the countryside in upstate New York. We have more connectivity within your immediate area here in California. Probably Cornell didn't have 1% of what you have here. So I'm delighted to be part and play a minor role in helping to launch this program. The theme tonight is technology. When we started talking about the scope of this program, we felt that it should basically be built on 3 legs. One is the classical teaching and training in the lecture theater, teaching the students critical thinking. The other part is research, but applied research. The purpose of a university is to lead the industry and play a part in the industry to see how we can help you to somehow learn from the research which we are doing and be really au fait, really cutting edge. And the other part is outreach, and outreach is critical. You are here to be part of this outreach activities, and our guest lectures, our panels, we learn from you. This is not just a one-off little discussion. You will be bound for a lifetime in this program, and we will always come back to you and to say, how are we doing? How can we apply best practice which you are implementing in your particular field? Let me just say a few things about this world of technology as an introduction. The theme tonight is, of course, technology as it applies to the hospitality and tourism industry. So basically, we stand today on the brink of technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we work and we live. This is not just something which is, we just talk about it a little bit. Technology is here to stay, and it will guide us, and we will see how we will implement it in our operations later on. It will fundamentally alter, as I mentioned, the way we live, we work, we relate to one another. It is not just a dead topic. In its scale, scope, and complexity, the transformation will be unlike anything human mankind has experienced previously. We do not yet know exactly where we go. There's a lot of new unknowns which will happen, but we were scared when the Industrial Revolution happened. We're now at the first stage of a new revolution. It will evolve. We are scared of robotics, but another Austrian I like to quote, Joseph Schumpeter, he said there's creative destruction. Out of the old, something new will rise, as long as we will make it work with a humane effect and leave nobody behind. So we do not yet know exactly how it will unfold, but one thing is clear. The response to it must be integrated, comprehensive, involving all stakeholders. The stakeholders of minority, women, people from different racial and ethnic population groups, the public, the private sector, and yes, the academy and civil society. The first industrial revolution used water and steam power to mechanize production. The second used electric power to create mass production. The third uses electronics and information technology. And the latest one, according to the World Economic Forum, as you know, just concluded, stated the fourth industrial revolution is building on the third, the digital revolution that has been occurring since the middle of last century. It is characterized by the fusion of technologies that is blurring the lines between the physical, the digital, and the biological. It's integrative. The possibilities of billions of people connected to mobile devices is unprecedented. It brings power, it brings capacity, but it also brings challenges. Storage capacity and access to knowledge are unlimited. And these possibilities will be multiplied by new emerging technologies, by breakthroughs in fields such as artificial intelligence, robotics, and the internet, which will all have a direct impact on the business we are passionate about, namely tourism. As we go along and as we will learn from our panelists, we will see where they see the direction will lead us. It's an exciting one. It is up to us and up to you, the students who are here, to prepare us for the future. We are here to facilitate this path, which will bring us to a new level of humanity, hopefully to even a better world. I am particularly also interested not just in the for-profit sector. I'm very passionate about those who live in poverty. A lot of my work is involved in India, in countries where truly is utter poverty. 3.6 billion people live in utter poverty without the right access of water. Tourism, again, will play a critical role in these particular fields in creating employment and opportunities. So here's the for-profit sector, but we can also be highly productive in helping people who live today in a way where technology can play a role to improve their life. Entrepreneurship is the key. Governments can open doors, but it takes an entrepreneurial spirit to bring us to another level of humanity. Thank you so much. So without any further ado, we would like to have Disney come and talk to us. I have to say, Disney was my program when I came as a graduate student to Cornell. I wanted to study how Disney functioned. And I've learned incredible lessons in the old days, and their culture and their approach on how to manage people, how to create a brand, is still as vibrant today as it was then. So thank you so much for being here with us.
All right, we did it. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm privileged to be here. This is a fantastic event. I'm so impressed with the turnout, especially at a program that hasn't even started yet. This is incredible. You touched on a couple of key things that, before I get started, really resonated with me. You talked about the different industrial revolutions. This one that's coming up is probably going to be the fastest. All the previous industrial revolutions that happened required hardware, infrastructure. You mentioned in your talk about all this mobile processing power that people have in the palms of their hand, and AI is just ready to take advantage of it. It's probably going to be one of the fastest industrial revolutions to ever hit us, and it's going to be an amazing time to be around for it. All right. So thanks again for letting me come tonight. I want to touch on a couple things. Obviously, number one is, emerging technology industry and kind of how we see it at Disney. I'd really like to talk about a recent travel experience that I think will talk a little bit about the speed of adoption of technology and how it's rapidly advancing. And then a couple key areas that we've been paying attention to at Disney, the mapping and navigation space, which is really fascinating, transportation space, and then in general, a couple key trends that we see in the hotel and resort area. And then I'll walk you through a few of our recent Disney Tech Park innovations that we've recently brought out to see our guests. So the first thing, this is actually a picture recently, my wife and I'm very privileged that my wife happens to be a very good medical sales rep, so we win trips to Hawaii every other year around. And they're actually really great trips. This happens to be Bradley at the Four Seasons on the Big Island of Hawaii, probably the nicest place I've ever had the privilege of staying at. And the one thing that we really noticed is that beauty was everywhere. The views were incredible. The food was incredible. The rooms were incredible. Everything was absolutely perfect. But the other thing we noticed was that Wi-Fi was also everywhere, which is actually really interesting. I can remember a few years ago when you went to book a hotel, you were going on a trip, and you looked for that little checkbox that said that, yes, this hotel has Wi-Fi, and you tried to find a hotel at Wi-Fi. And now a hotel is expected to have Wi-Fi. I can't even tell you the last time I went to a hotel that didn't have Wi-Fi. We have Wi-Fi in planes. So, think about, that was a trend of technology that started, 10 or so years ago with Wi-Fi in hotels, and now at this point we've got Wi-Fi everywhere. Now the next really interesting thing I noticed at this resort was this. So we've all done, or maybe many of us have done mobile order with our Starbucks app, where you order your latte and you show up at the store and pick it up. And that's a recent technological innovation. And I was surprised to see here at Four Seasons when I downloaded their app that they had mobile order on premise. I could order a latte from my room, walk over to the trading post that they called it, and pick up my latte. It was just fascinating to me. I mean, this is something that Starbucks launched, one of the biggest companies in the world, the most powerful companies in the world, and Four Seasons probably put this together in 6 months or so. And now they're competing with Starbucks with a similar technology that Starbucks has. So just when we talk about the transition from Wi-Fi and how long adoption took and now it's everywhere, now companies like the Four Seasons or Best Western, everybody can do the same thing that some of these big players are doing in a matter of months. So now we're going to move on and talk a little bit about maps. This was kind of an interesting stat because I was surprised at how low it was that there are over half of millennials that don't need a map when they're traveling. But I can't imagine the last time I went anywhere where I didn't expect to use my GPS to navigate around a location. I mean, there's no more that you have to bring your big map or your brochure. Everything is in your phone. Even here at Cal Lutheran, I noticed when I got to campus, you have your own map. Which is another big thing. We do it at Disney. We develop our own maps. We put our own layering and graphics and enhance the different experiences of maps. Previously, this was just a piece of paper that's used to navigate, and now it's everywhere. But what we're most excited about is kind of the future of maps. And there's a couple different areas that we're really looking at. So one is augmented reality travel experiences. I think this is fascinating. You can go to a location, and not only can you figure out how to get around, but you can create personalized experiences. You can create very exact wayfinding opportunities. And along the way, you can get very personalized points of interest. So Google, of course, knows everything about you. As you're walking through a town in a new location and they know that you like coffee, they might recommend a coffee shop along the way. So all of our travel experiences through this augmented reality view are going to become a lot more personalized. Another interesting company that we found is called Spatial Ai. And they haven't really made much of an impact yet, but I thought this was really telling. So instead of going to a location and doing a Google search and Yelp reviews and maybe trying to find a place to eat, what Spatial AI is doing is they're actually crunching a lot of social data, and they're coming up with different trends that are popping up in areas. So this one right here shows you, the different foodie spots in LA where food is trending and gourmet food and restaurants are opening up. And it's pretty telling. It's in the downtown LA area. If anyone's familiar with this area, downtown has been just an absolute hotbed of new food and restaurant locations opening up. But it kind of gives you a new way to explore a destination when you get there. You can, instead of trying to find a specific restaurant, open it up and look for hotspots, whether it's food or vintage shopping or antique shopping. The next area I want to talk about, I'm actually going to use one of my favorite comedians from growing up, Jerry Seinfeld. If any of you have Netflix, he recently did a really great stand-up routine from the comedy place where he started his career. And he had this one joke that really resonated with me, especially my job at Disney. And he does this whole bit about growing up in Long Island and the different terms they use to talk about public transportation. And you didn't get into the train to go to the city, you got on the train. When you got to the city, you got off of it. And then you got out and you had to find a taxi cab, and you didn't get on the cab, you got in the cab. And then, he goes on this and talks about the different ways they refer to public transportation. And then he kind of ends his joke with, and now there's this thing called Uber. And, what do you do with Uber? Do you get on it? Do you get in it? And, the answer is you take Uber. And, it was really interesting that, this comedian, used Uber as one of his main storylines. And, I think from a travel and tourism perspective, and we all can probably agree if we've ever taken a trip, is that when we go to a new location, we don't really worry about getting around anymore. You go to an airport, or you get to a new location, or you're going to visit family and friends. I think for a lot of us, the first thing you think about is, oh, I'm just going to take Uber. And especially with traveling, of the people that use it, 74% of are using with traveling. I know that us at Disney, we recently launched a pilot with Lyft called the Minivan, if any of you know about it, but we took these little minivans and we put polka dots on them and made them really cute. And we created a rideshare program around Walt Disney World Resort where guests could call a Lyft shuttle, what we call the minivan, and use it to take them to different parts of the park. And it's actually been really successful. It's something that guests expect, and it's something that they want, and we're trying to figure out a great way to deliver it to them. So the next part we can talk a little bit about is the hotel and resort space. And there's really a couple key trends that I just want to touch on here that we found pretty interesting. And I'll just kind of tell a little story about this, but when I was a kid growing up, my friend's father was an electrician who worked in hotels. And we were always so excited when he used to get a new job at a hotel because while he was there, and this may not have been legal, but he would record all the movies that were on the hotel cable box. And then he'd come home, and then that weekend we'd be able to binge watch on all the new movies that were recently released in the hotel. And what's interesting is that's just not how it works anymore. Now you show up at a hotel and you expect, your mobile phone has more content than their device. So hotels now really need to figure out how can they create a baseline where guests can bring their own content, play their own Netflix accounts, use their own Hulu accounts to watch the content that they want. They don't really have much of a competitive advantage in this space as they used to. Now it's really a requirement and expectation of guests. The next area that was actually pretty interesting is keyless entry. We were one of the earlier adopters with the Magic Band, which is actually a really fascinating tool. It's surprising to me at Disney. I've only been here about 8 months, but the fact that parents show up at Disney World with their 7- and 8-year-old children and they strap a Magic Band on them and they let them go, and knowing that their Magic Band can get them back into their room if they ever need it. And this is an area of expectation that's just been huge with guests, especially in the self-service area. And I know you've recently had a bad experience, but a lot of guests are looking to just walk into a hotel and go right to their room. So instead of using a Magic Band, people are starting to use their phones and other devices to get into their rooms. This next one's pretty cool too. So I'm assuming a lot of you have a virtual assistant at home. How many people? Let's see if this holds up to the number. Well, a little bit less, which is kind of interesting because guests actually prefer to have this device in the room. And granted, this study was done with fairly tech-savvy guests. But it kind of surprises me that we're okay with having a listening device in a hotel room in a public space. But it's something that guests want. They're used to using it at home, and they expect to have the same level of comfort when they're traveling. And one of the cool things that we talk about at work with Amazon Echoes and Google Homes is the fact that guests can get an answer immediately. sometimes even faster than if they did reach someone at the first desk. You know, the amount of processing power that's in this device when a guest calls and has any question about their account or about an attraction, you know, 9 times out of 10, this device could potentially have an answer faster than an actual human being. And the Amazon Echo will never put you on hold. It will occasionally give you the wrong answer, but it never puts you on hold, and it always gives you something. The next area, which I was actually surprised how high this was, that people are okay with having robots deliver food to their room, but this is an area that, you know, really just kind of summarizes, you know, where I started this presentation and the speed of adoption. You know, robots are pretty new, but there's actually a lot of use cases of hotels using them right now to deliver amenities to your room. It's everything from your forgot my toothbrush to toothpaste to water, and hotels are deploying these because, one, it's interesting and guests really like it. They think it's pretty cool. You don't need to have staff 24 hours a day. You just have your robot down in the lobby and you can put things in it. And you know, it kind of gives hotels that interesting competitive advantage. I mean, I was recently at a hotel and a Holiday Inn had this exact robot in it, you know, just trying it out for their guests. So now I'm going to move over and I'll talk a little bit about Disney parks and kind of doing this presentation backwards. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and what I do. But I'm actually very lucky to be part of this organization. I've only been with Disney about 8 months now, but I've been in the innovation and tech space for a while. For the last 8 years or so, I started and co-founded 2 different startup companies, one in the payment processing space, another one in the healthcare space. And when I was trying to figure out what to do, you know, I really wanted to go back to a big company, but I wanted to go somewhere that really embraced innovation and was really at the cutting edge of technology, and also a place that was very customer-centric, and I don't think it could have gone anywhere better. But our company, from a parks and resorts perspective, has such incredible worldwide reach. You know, with our resorts all over the world, our cruise lines, and we're developing more ships. We have an incredible timeshare organization called the Disney Vacation Club, a full-on, all-inclusive resort in Hawaii, Aulani. And one little-known area that I didn't even know about until I joined the company was Adventures by Disney, which is actually a really cool concierge travel organization where you can go and book private, very close and interesting tours all around the world that are sponsored by Disney. Now, with all that being said, you know, I want to talk a little bit about my team. So I run a group called Innovation and Production, and what we do is we scour the market for technology and trends. So we have product managers on my team as well as researchers. And we have a very core focus on AI machine learning right now, as well as augmented reality, data analytics, natural language processing. And what we do is we try to become experts in that space, understand exactly what's going on. We look at a lot of corollary use cases, things that are happening in the market. And then we spend a lot of time with our stakeholders in our different lines of business, which I'll talk about on the next slide. And we spend a lot of time understanding needs, problems, opportunities that they might have. And the first thing we try to do is match their need with a vendor, right? We try to always avoid building something internally because that can, you know, lead to a lot of a waste and restarts. So we always try to find a vendor that we can partner with and co-develop something. Companies like Google or Amazons of the world that are out there and have developed a lot of great technology that's publicly available. And then we also have a priority for speed. You know, we talked about the adoption. My executive management is all about these things need to be tested in the lab, out to guests, 6 to 9 months tested. Because what happens is, you know, when I was alluding earlier to someone privately, was that, you know, we were talking to one vendor and all of a sudden, you know, 3 months later, the technology was outdated and surpassed by another vendor. So your ability to move very quickly in this space and also develop systems that are adaptable and can be interchangeable is very, very important. And we're lucky enough that, you know, we're one of the few organizations where we actually have a dedicated team that's doing this, which I think is very important. because a lot of times within the business, the bandwidth of people that are day in, day out running these operations, they don't really have the time to focus on this. So the different lines of business, which are really cool at Disney, and some of those numbers there just kind of give you a magnitude of how big they really are. But from an attractions and entertainment space, our digital experience, our magic bands, everything that you can do at our mobile app. So we're always trying to find new ways to innovate there. Our imaging business, which traditionally was take a picture and show up at a counter, a few days later and buy your printed out photograph, is now real-time photos on your personal mobile device. They're also layered with things that we call magic shots. So the photographer will put you in a pose and Disney characters will show up alongside you. Our resorts and transportation business is massive. We talked a little bit about minivan, how we're trying to embrace rideshare technology, and also what we call e-services, so access to everything about your trip on your mobile device, on the web. Our food and beverage organization, I talked about Four Seasons earlier with their mobile order technology. We recently launched the same thing in our parks at Disneyland. You can go try it out right now. When you're in the park, you can order food on your phone, pay for it, skip the line when you get there, and pick it up at any of our quick service locations. And then from a merchandise perspective, we actually launched a really cool app called Shop Disney Parks. And what it does is it helps guests that are in our park find merchandise. And one of the things that guests love to do in our park is actually go to our retail locations. So what this app helps them do is actually find the store where that physical product is located. So instead of having to go to multiple stores, they can find the exact store that they want to go to and purchase it. How much time do I have left? A few minutes, keep going? Oh, you got it. So that's good. So I'm gonna slow down my talking, and what I wanna do is show you a couple innovations that we recently launched. These are short videos, but this first one is at Disneyland, and we launched this product called MaxPass. And traditionally, I don't know if anybody's been to Disneyland, we used to have a ticket booth where you'd go and grab your Fast Pass, and then you would get a Fast Pass and you would go to the resort or the attraction line and you'd redeem it. And what we did was we put this product called MaxPass on your phone where you can go and select your Fast Passes for your rides, and it also came with all of your photos, a digital copy. So I'll just kind of give you a quick overview of how that works. So one of the interesting things there is we actually were able to monetize this process. So I don't know if you noticed that in this activity, but if you think about it, previously we had guests that would go to a physical ticket booth, take out a ticket, and then they would go to that attraction later in the day and ride. If you notice what we're doing now, we're actually monetizing that. So guests are actually willing to pay for convenience, of doing things on your phone, and I think that's something very important to consider when you talk about technology in the travel and tourism industry, is that convenience and the ability to do things in real time, anytime, don't always assume that you have to give it away for free. There are a lot of opportunities to monetize it. And I think what I want to do, I'm just going to wrap up so we can get to the stakeholder section. But I want to wrap up with one thing before I go. Again, speed is what I want to talk about. So this is Shanghai Disneyland, and it's our traditional manual fast pass ticket booth. So when we launched the resort, we didn't have any digital services. There was no app. It was just a park, and you had to go and stand in line and go pick up your fast pass. And then we said, okay, well, it's time to launch an app and put our digital fast pass product to work and let people get their fast passes for their rides. And we opened the park, and by 9 a.m. that morning, there was nobody in line. So everybody showed up to the park that day saying, hey, look, I can now get fast passes on my phone. I'm not going to go wait in line. So the adoption rate was about 0 minutes, because I think the park opened at 9 a.m. So unbelievably fast. And again, in the effort of monetization, we turned it into a beverage stand 10 days later. So yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for the panel to get into discussion. I hope I shared with you a couple cool insights, and I think my biggest takeaway is all about speed.
Well done.
Thank you.
Quick question, Daniel, thank you. How many of you are here the first time? Or how many of you were here for our first presentation? Just a few. So allow me just a few minutes to bring you up to the level where you can fill out your application form to become major in hospitality and tourism when the program is launched. I'd like to get you briefly excited about the industry and give you some of the points and issues which we discussed in our first presentation. I might need some help to see how I get organized here. So here it is. Here is the secret juice about the hospitality and tourism industry. The key players involved in this industry are listed here. And as you will see, it is a highly interactive industry, multidisciplinary, hotel, resorts, rail, airport, and so on. And this is what I liked about hospitality and tourism. You're just not committed to one particular element. You have multiple facilities which also cross-sell each other. So from airlines to hotels to convention centers, it is an industry which doesn't put you just into one particular slot. 30 of the industries are the major ones, generating $7.5 trillion in annual GDP. Annual GDP 7.3, that's the total GDP generated by the state of California or the United Kingdom. So it's a large industry, growing extensively, and projected employees and management needed for over the next 4 years are 40 million. The industry is growing far above the general growth rate of the global economy. So it's an industry which continues to advance, which is important for you. If you plan a career, you want to be in a sector which allows you to grow a career in companies, but also a career as entrepreneurs. So it's a sector which is continuously evolving and growing. By 2025, we will have 2.2 billion people travel internationally. We are very interested in the international sector. So any one of you who is interested to work in foreign countries, to understand foreign cultures, this is the industry where you want to be in. Of course, if you like to drink wines, this is the industry too you want to be in, because we are highly versed in drinking Italian, French, German, and so on wines. In terms of California itself, source of tourism spending, 60% out of state. However, I have to say this favorable number is not guaranteed. We have to continue to improve our tourism infrastructure in California, and we have some problems. Our airport here in LA is ranked the second worst in America. This is nothing we want to be proud of, because politicians use the tax rate which we generate and apply it somewhere else. The infrastructure of roads, I don't have to tell you, support elements, and this is an area we have to research further to put some pressure on our government officials to improve the infrastructure of this state. One of the greatest infrastructure developments was what was done by Eisenhower when he started the Interstate Highway Act. Without the Interstate Highway Act, tourism would die. So we have elements of our industry which are industry related, but others we need the infrastructure to help us to be successful. Other countries are doing a great job. I can check out of my hotel in Hong Kong register, put my luggage away right in downtown Hong Kong, and the luggage will arrive when I land back in Paris, New York, or wherever. So the seamless, using technology to integrate it with seamless travel is really critical and important. The good news, however, is that the exciting stuff in research is happening right here at your front door. New transportation methods, the driverless car is happening. So we have a lot of stuff going on which will improve this weakness, hopefully. In the first section, we looked at the macro and micro economic models. How are we dependent on what is happening in the economy globally? What is happening in the area of legislation and laws? To what degree are demographics affecting the product we offer? I just came back from Disney. There were 3 different generations there, and we all had a great time. So we look at how do we handle people of different culture, their foods, their lifestyle elements are important, so cultural lifestyle important. Technology here, Daniel, I didn't put it in just to make you feel good. We feel it is essential to understand the technology and take advantage of what they have to offer. Now, talking about technology today, there are 2 major areas, and we will address only one, and this is information technology. The other one I related to briefly, and this is the infrastructure technology. We cannot cover this today, but at one point, we should have a separate session looking at infrastructure development. There's some amazing thing which is happening. We will have, as you know, the Concorde Match 1 had to be discontinued. Right now, there's research in America that we will have a new Mach 2 a jet coming online, hopefully within the next 2 years. Space travel is happening. As a result of technology, we see some revolutions which are happening, and we have done some research in that area. And we should be able to address some of that in the future. Rail travel, infrastructure development. Right now, you have governments involved in building an improved infrastructure, but not in America, mainly overseas. The Austrians and Italians are building the largest tunnel connecting Austria with Italy. 37 miles tunnel is being dug right now as we speak. These are major capital expenditure projects, but it requires a government which thinks futuristic. Tourism have choices. Tourists have choices where to go to for conventions, for meetings, and in some areas, they're just not coming back to LA nor to New York. So we need to make sure that we have facilities which are good, which we have, but that the surrounding element is functioning as well. Traffic, of course, as you know, is our big issue here. We use in our panel discussion in a few minutes this model. It's a model of the value chain model. We use it in business and academic and research, but we will look at the different areas. How is the corporation functioning? How is operations, our external shareholders, and customer search? So with that, why don't we go into the panel discussion and address some of these issues and see where they will lead us. Okay, why don't we sit down over here? So the idea is this is a safe space. Our panel members can talk about whatever they want to. We will not quote them in the New York Times or wherever. So we like to have some insider information. And the other thing we want to do is the information which we gather here will find its way back into the classroom. We are not just trying to, some of you have studied with, taken some courses which would have been good as history courses. But in business, we try to lead the industry, and we learn from our industry members and industry leaders. I would like to start the discussion maybe with the ladies first.
Oh, goodness.
Marina, tell us a little bit, not about your disco dancing days, but how your career evolved, where you're at now, and what challenges you find you're being confronting now. Because these students are looking at you and say, I want to be a Marina eventually when I graduate. A year later, they like to have your position.
That's a lot of pressure, you know.
Yes.
Sure. My name is Marina Lubinsky. I am Chief Information Officer for the Cheesecake Factory. And I'm sure, how many of you know Cheesecake Factory as a brand? How many of you know Rock Sugar? There you go, a couple of people. Rock Sugar is actually owned by the Cheesecake Factory. How many of you know Grand Lux Cafe? There we go. So Cheesecake Factory is an iconic brand. We have about over 200 restaurants in the continental United States, Puerto Rico, and Mexico, and we've now started expanding into Middle East and Asia. And it's been amazing and successful. But back to me, I'm the Chief Information Officer. I've been with the Cheesecake Factory for about a year now. But I am not a newbie to the hospitality industry. I came from a company called Oakwood Worldwide, and I spent about 11 years there. And Oakwood is a company that does service apartments. Same thing, hospitality, long-term, hotel-like stay, a little bit different, but still, it's all about the guest. It's also all about the ease of checking in, checking out, and finding your way and whatnot. As you can probably sense from my accent, I'm European. I grew up in Denmark. I have a Master of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering from the Technical University of Denmark. I started my career in consulting at Andersen Consulting, which is now Accenture. Spent many, many years traveling, and then I decided I paid my dues, and then Andersen said, or Accenture said, no, that's not how it works. So I went to work for Disney from there, and I spent a few years at Disney Consumer Products, and so like fell into the hospitality industry and never looked back. And I do want to echo you, Daniel. If you think about challenges, I think the speed is probably the greatest challenge for all of us in technology.
Now we switch totally to somebody who runs a luxury hotel, who has to make this technology work and still connect the customer who wants to have a personal experience to his iconic brand. How do you do this? How do you see the challenges between personalized service, for which Four Seasons obviously is world-renowned, and technology? How do you make this work? Because I have to tell you briefly, I check into luxury hotels, and very often the room clerk is so much engaged with this computer system that I might as well be a robot. So how do you create this human experience for which you're so renowned in?
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity, Udo. For Four Seasons, it's really challenging to embrace technology, but make it tangible for the luxury clientele. It's really critical for us. If we embraced all sorts of technology, I would lose 100% of our customer base. Because that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for a personalized service, recognition. So how do we use the technology that is out there to make it special? And that's really what we focus on with Four Seasons. A lot of the technology that Daniel mentioned is things that we use, but we take that and we try to make it personalized, we try to make it luxurious, and we try to make it feel unique. So unlike other properties and other brands, some of the technology doesn't work for Four Seasons as a luxury hotel provider. Our clientele does not feel comfortable checking in and accessing their room with their mobile device. That's not something that they feel comfortable with. They're not used to that kind of an experience, and they feel a little bit uneasy with that. So we have that technology, we can do that, but we use it or decide not to use it based on our clientele. One thing that we've become very successful with recently is not only the mobile app that Daniel mentioned, which we kind of fast-tracked, if you will, and made it a quick application of technology, but what we've led the globe with here locally at Westlake is a messenger app. It's an application that we use here at the hotel where we chat with guests. And you think, well, that's something that's been around forever, or at least the last 10 years, right? Texting with guests. Not in the luxury realm of that experience. And we lead the globe here in Westlake on unique conversations and unique messaging. And it's how we've done that here that's made it successful. You talk about personalization, Udo. There's a lot of robo-chatting out there. There's a lot of machine chatting, and we've pushed away from that and really have opened up that application to every staff member possible at the hotel. So it's not centralized into one department or one area of communication. It's your reservations agents, it's your concierge, it's your front desk agents. They're the ones that are physically texting you prior to your arrival, after your check-in, because they've interacted with you. They know that you're here celebrating a birthday. They know what type of room you just asked for during the check-in experience. And then they chat you after you've gone up to your room. Mr. Russell, I know you're here to celebrate and spend some time in your room. How is that view? Is it everything that you thought it would be? That's the personalization, and that's how we use technology to create a luxury experience for our guests.
Fabulous. You create relationships even before the customer comes to your property.
Exactly.
Well done. Very interesting, isn't it? High touch, high tech. Now, how do you at Disney, with your huge amounts of different properties, create and maintain this corporate culture of Disney, which later on I have to show you a picture of this customer satisfaction experience, which is still personal. I have to give you just a brief statistic. I was very interested when I looked at Disney. I was interested how many companies do still exist which were in the market in 1960. Give me a guess. How many of these companies which existed 1960 are still today in existence in the marketplace? If you win, you get a Ferrari. Maybe not, but 12%. 12% have died. Why have they died? They were not, either they were mergers and acquisitions, or they were not able to adjust to the environment of today. And it's critical. It is not easy for an owner, for a company, to say, where do we need to readjust our offering, our culture, but where do the customers still look for the old? So when we went to Disney, my 3-year-old granddaughter wanted an old-fashioned Disney Winnie the Pooh experience, and she had it, and she was happy. The grandparents wanted to make sure that everything went fine, and let's be organized, no dramas. We had this. The parents were in between because they had some teenage daughters at 12 and 14. They had totally different ideas where they wanted to go. Because of this one app you were talking, they were organized and brought to different levels and places, but they still had a unique Disney experience. So what's the future? How are you dealing the next level with this high-tech experience level, which could be so overwhelming that you lose your culture?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you used the term luxurious. At Disney, our term is magical. So where you can have luxurious tech touches with your guests, our whole focus is entirely on magical touches. So as long as we focus on that and figure out how can we use technology, not where the guest is maybe using their phone and staring in their phone and walking through our park, but how can we leverage all the technology on the device to create a personalized magical experience? And the second point is that speed goes both ways. So speed, oh my gosh, we have to catch up. Everything is moving so quickly. But on the second thing, because everything moves so fast, you can move fast too if you're willing to embrace it. I mentioned earlier one of the lucky things for me and my team at Disney is that innovation is completely embraced within our organization, across all the organization.
How about failure? So you bring something new on the market. In my organizations, when the techie guys failed, they were blamed. When they succeeded, management took the credit. How much room do you have to fail in some of your innovations? Or do you test really? I have to tell you my experience. I was really, when I was young, cutting edge, and we developed the first Hilton hotel in New York, 1,200 rooms. The first operation, which was high-techy. The convention checked in. The beta testing worked very well. They checked out. The system went down. And we did what? We put champagne buckets on the checkout counter and said, put in what you think you owed us. So that was not a good approach, right? So the failure was huge, and we had to go back to a manual system. So failure comes also with success of technology.
Yeah, and I think it's changing. If you look, people are familiar, obviously, with our Magic Band product that we have in resorts, and that was years and years of development and testing. And then I showed you that video on our MaxPass product in our app, and that was started a little bit before I got there, but very quick to production. And a product like that, almost zero pilot testing, right? So the culture of the organization, especially with the new touch points through your mobile phone and having an app, things are happening a lot faster.
I have a question to Marina now. Marina, you expanded now internationally. So you have a successful model towards the American market. Now you go to, where are you in Dubai, or where are you?
We are in Dubai.
You're in Dubai, okay. Now you're in Dubai, different culture, different dietary situations. How difficult was it to adjust, to take this model which worked here and to transplant it to Dubai culturally?
You have to adjust. You have to know what your secret sauce is. And you take your secret sauce and say, this is my success. This is why I'm so successful. I'm going to go and you have to adopt technology, culture, everything, because there are different laws, different ways of doing business. There are different religions. But you go and you find partners, and it's all about, we talk about crowdsourcing, and we talk about getting into relationships with others, because it's not just the Cheesecake Factory going out there and saying, this is what I do every day. It has to be adaptable. And you partner up with your subject matter experts. And that has been our success. We just opened a restaurant in Hong Kong. The wait was 6 hours. We opened a restaurant in Toronto. They had to close the mall because of the lines. So there's that iconic brand, and it's known around the world, but you still have to adjust, and you have to make sure that it fits. Because if it doesn't fit, it's not going to work. And I'm sure the hoteliers, out here, you're nodding. And it's not just about the brand and about the restaurant. It's also about the people, because people is our greatest asset. It's the people you hire, it's how you train, it's how you relate to them. And you have systems and technology to support you in that. But technology, in many ways, it's sort of like it's just a partner to the people aspect of it.
Great point. Great. So again, for those potential students who will become hotel students, and may just sign up in a little while, but there has to be a course on culture, right? How to respect, adjust to foreign cultures. And this leads me a little bit to this important sector called, the external stakeholders. As a company, you create an image, and now to you again, Isidore Sharp, the founder of this legendary company, started Four Seasons in Toronto nearly 50 years ago? Mm-hmm. And created a world-class company by creating a culture which connecting to external stakeholders. How do you maintain this relationship with the external stakeholders, which are your employees, your suppliers, the local communities? Do you have a special system in place, a secret juice, which allowed you to become so successful internationally? In how many countries do you operate?
We're over 56 countries now, 109 properties around the globe. You can use technology, and what I think when you think about the stakeholders and how you involve the stakeholders is all about the relationships you build and the communication that you enhance to make sure that those relationships are strong with your stakeholders. And sometimes technology plays a part in that. On your slide there, you showed trade unions, and there's a piece of technology that we use internally. It's a communication device called Vocera. I'm not sure if anyone here knows of Vocera, but it does point-to-point communication as well as broadcast communication within our employment team, specifically our housekeepers. You talk about trade unions, and sometimes protecting yourself from unionization is something that we really want to do as a company and as a location. Sometimes those unions are beneficial, other times they're not, but the safety of our employees is very critical for our success. We talk about employees and the importance in their role. And this communication device called Vocera basically has an alert function. In today's society, it's becoming more and more critical to be able to ask for help or assistance when needed. And this device, for our housekeepers specifically, has an alert button that they can press any time they feel uncomfortable in any type of situation.
Maybe Hollywood should have that system.
Yes.
Yes.
Perhaps.
The reputation you have, I'm so glad you addressed this issue. It's sensitive, it's current, but you only have one reputation, and it can be ruined very quickly. So here's something you are in HR very aware of. How do you create this environment where you're involved with situations, sexual predators, et cetera, which is people who drink alcohol and so on?
Exactly. It's a one button push to where they can alert that they need assistance. So it's really, it's a safety feeling if at a minimum, and a safety savior at a maximum. So that's one piece of involving a stakeholder that you wouldn't think of, as well as a technological implementation that we use.
In terms of succession planning, we spoke earlier a little bit. Here's the founder of this company. It's at retirement age. How will you continue this culture which he has embedded so much in your company? I mean, this will be a challenge. Disney, it's very interesting. When I came to Cornell as a grad student, the Disney culture was still there when I researched Disney. Hilton International, where I was a director of, there were still these memory events on what Conrad Hilton did when he was running his company nearly 100 years ago. What do? You have owners. The founder of your company is still alive.
Still alive and active. Yeah.
What do you do in keeping his vision alive within the company? New employees come and go.
New
How
employees,
important is it?
It's important, but it's also important to look at the next layer down, and to look at the next layer down, and to have a career path for these people. Because restaurant industry, most of you know, is a very high turnover industry. But it's important, and I think the philosophy is we want to make our employees happy, keep them happy, but it's even more important to have the managers happier and have the autonomy and have the ability to make decisions and have a clear career path. So David Overton, who's the founder, chairman of the Cheesecake Factory, has a very strong management team, and that management team has a very strong management team. And if you look at the turnover in those ranks, it's almost non-existent. And it can be because of the career opportunities, compensation, benefits, you name it. But the fact is that culture propagates all throughout the organization. We actually always say, oh, we're so cheesecake. And it means something. Cheesecake means something. It means, it's all about customer service. It's all about making our guests happy. It's all about keeping our employees happy. So you go into the building here in Agoura Hills, in Calabasas Hills, and you can feel that it's not a cult, but it feels almost like, it's this Stepford Wives. Everybody's happy, and and that was my feeling when I came to the Cheesecake Factory. Oh my God, are they all making it up? No, they're really, truly happy and proud to work for the iconic brand and work for the company that appreciates them and reciprocates.
A challenge, right? Personal questions, we won't quote you, but let's make it a little bit interactive. How many of you worked in a company or in organizations where you said this was living hell, or it wasn't positive? Anyone? Right? Quite some of you, 20, 25%. How many of you worked in a company where you said, I loved it? So you're blessed, right? To work somewhere where you go to work and when you say, I enjoy being engaged in this company. Does that have a tangible value? I'll give you a little example. I was asked, and this is later, where you can be successful in life, people will hire you to solve somebody else's problem. I started working for a company, and the majority shareholder said, we are a loving, caring company. Well, isn't this wonderful? Then in reality, I asked the my HR vice president, and I said, tell me, what is the employee turnover? And the turnover was like 150%. This is not a loving, caring company. Then you put a cost. Then you put a cost to turnover. Is there a cost which you can quantify? I can. What does it cost physically to hire a new person, to train a person? That is the actual dollars and cents cost. The cost which you can't calculate is the emotional cost, the relationship with your staff, the relationship with your customers. Therefore, culture is kind of a fuzzy term. It's just like falling in love, right? It's one thing to fall in love, but it's one thing to have a relationship over an extended period of time. If you don't have a good relationship, just fire him, but that's okay. But in business, it's tough. The culture is the secret juice. And we want to teach our students how do you create this culture by learning from people like you. Now, here you are, Daniel. They took you in as a new guy here who knows all, the successful entrepreneur. How did you get involved with this Disney culture? How did they make you a disciple?
Gosh, well, I mean, I've loved Disney my whole life.
So it wasn't just cash.
Yeah, I grew. No, I mean, I grew up in New York, and I just remember our winters getting in the car and driving down to Florida and going to Disney World. So very fond childhood memories, and I've always been a big, lover of innovation and massive transformations. And when you think about the two probably greatest innovators of our time, pre the Steve Jobs and Bill Gates era, I mean, it's like Henry Ford and Walt Disney. And I mean, you talk about the culture and, we are Cheesecake. Well, we are all cast members in our organization. We aren't employees. And what Walt Disney has instilled in this organization is just absolutely incredible. I'll never forget my first week. I get there. One of the first things they give you is your pass so that you can go to the parks for free with you and, your family members. My wife got her own silver pass to get into the park for free whenever she wants to go. You go through this fantastic orientation, learning about the entire organization and the culture of innovation. And Imagineering and all the great things that we've brought to life. And and then the end of it, they make you cry when they show you all these great experiences of making guests unbelievably happy and changing their life, which for a lot of our visitors, 50%, I think or so at Walt Disney World, are first time, once in a lifetime, save up all of your money to go to this place for a week and have this unbelievable experience. So, when you think about people just pinching pennies, everything, going to the park, and like this is their one lifelong dream to bring their children, everybody gets pretty excited about that. So
I was excited talking, Four Seasons. This is the world which I lived in. And Bradley, how do you select and find and train employees who have your passion for this company? I can stay at a Holiday Inn bed for, I don't know, $120, or I can stay in your bed. A bed is a bed, but what is the price difference? Is the atmosphere, the environment you create, and the people you have. The dean took me today, finally, he checked me out for a year, to the espresso bar at your hotel, and immediately you really felt welcome by walking through the door. So how do you select people? How do you create this culture which is so special of service, of dedication?
No, thank you. It comes from a cookie cutter method, which is behavior-based interviewing. It's something that we have done for years. Many other companies do it too. But I can tell you one thing is we promote internal promotions. And the people that are successful within Four Seasons have those special qualities that separate that experience for our guests. And I can tell you, it's not functional knowledge by any means. People that we hire at Four Seasons, I'm looking for personality. I'm looking for connection. I'm looking for engagement. Those are the things that you cannot learn sometimes. I can teach anyone how to check somebody in and check somebody out, but how you engage people, how you look at them, how you talk to one another is something that you can figure out in about 5 minutes during an interview process. And as we hire these people, as we onboard them, and we let them know about our culture and how we see each other in the hallways, as you mentioned, and they get, enamored with what we're trying to do, it blossoms more so. So to, demystify it, it really is a type of personality. And then as we bring them up, they learn how to deliver that personality in a luxury environment.
With Sincerity is, because we have been to luxury hotels where the atmosphere could be easily intimidating to somebody who isn't used to it, but the greatest elegance is that of being very natural and being sincere. To train and teach that is rewarding, but not easy.
It is very rewarding, and it's an empowering process, right? It's trying to relate to our guests, and we do it from day one. If you have something to speak about with a guest that you're checking in or interacting with in the food and beverage environment, go for it. Talk about it. We don't structure the interactions, right? We want that personality to come out. We want that interaction to happen because that's what they pay for. That's what they want to pay $300 a night for as opposed to $100 across the street, is that type of engagement that they can't get anywhere else. So really when we have that, we empower it.
As you know, audience, I could sit here for another hour, actually until breakfast, because this is such a stimulating discussion. It's such a wonderful field. I'm being given little signals. Apparently the audience had some questions. How do we handle this? But I have to show you a picture. This was totally unsolicited. It is all about a customer experience. And how do you have a superior customer experience? Even with all the technology in the world, what counts is this. This happened to be my granddaughter, so I didn't want to advertise her. But her experience at Disney, this is what it was all about. To have an experience of, I am in my dream world. I was in the dream world because she was happy. Her parents were happy that she was happy. The teenagers were happy. But to have this feeling of sincerity, of feeling comfortable, we have a wonderful word in German, geborgen. I feel just content being in this environment. And that's not easy if you multiply it by 1 million visits odd. So the other thing I just wanted to share briefly, this is very important, we have to make decisions. One, of course, is just to wait and see how the acorn grows into a tree eventually, Or I say, maybe I cannot just wait and let things happen. How to be proactive, how to read the environment, how to try new things is important. And you only have 12% of companies which survive over the next 25 years. If you sit still and think somebody will do the job on your behalf, you're just not going to be successful. So with that, we like to go to a brief, wonderful discussion sessions. How do we handle this? I have to say, this young lady has helped us for the last year and a half. She speaks perfectly Austrian by now. Tell me what we do now. Oh, if anybody has a question card, fill it out with the American Express number, so I can cash it in a little later. Have you been given, some of you, the card already? On your seats. And then you have some Q&As. Okay, if you have a question, just give $10 to Jewel, and you can ask a question to our panel. Right over here.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So I'm a founder of a technology company, and it is good to hear how technology is coming right at the forefront of the customer experience. And we just heard about how there was a technology implemented, which you mentioned took a year or so, and then Disney implemented in 6 months. And so the question is, from your vantage point, do you see technology as a core competency that you constantly need to innovate and protect versus being released out to your competitors? And I was just amazed about Holiday Inn having a robot concierge. It's just, Four Seasons, potentially, expected, but Holiday Inn, especially catering to the millennials. So from where you sit, how do you look at technology?
Sure, I can start. I would say that from Disney's perspective, the race is already over. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they're the technology companies. So when you think about Disney, we're not going to be inventing new technology, we're going to be leveraging technology. And I think that's one of the beauties of it. We focus on our core competency, which is delivering magical guest experiences, creating unbelievable IP through our movie studio, and then leveraging technology of other companies and vendors, whether they're big companies in the world or smaller startup companies that have created some unbelievable new artificial intelligence algorithm that we can leverage our own data and our IP on. So our stance on technology is to find it, buy it, and leverage it.
Marina.
Oh, it's the same thing. I mean, we're not in the technology business. We're not in the business of building up apps or doing anything, but we are the user of the apps, and we use them and we leverage them, and we need to stay abreast of what's next and exciting. But also within the industry, I think it's important to share the knowledge, and it's important to network with peer companies, because it's not about the survival of the fittest. It's about really truly providing that guest experience. And that, again, ultimately comes down to that magical touch. And if technology enables it, that's great. But if it's not, there's no technology there, that's fine too. So, if you look at any restaurant company, we never build anything anymore. We have a bunch of vendors that we work with, we integrate, we go to the cloud more than anything. Amazons of the world are our best friends, but it's then important to network and stay abreast of what's new and what's coming. And I'm sure, it's all about operational execution really, more than technology.
I have to tell you briefly that not too long ago, the tech people were usually based next to a server in the basement. The wine cellar was next to it, but they were nowhere. Within the last very short period of time, they are now at the C-suite. They are right at the top level, involved in policy, and interacting, and this is a challenge, interacting with the operational people who run the business on a day-to-day basis. So when we hear about Bradley's challenges in running a rooms division department, director of the most profitable department in our hotel, he has to make also a decision: is the stuff which I get from the corporation, from the corporate office, is it doable? I'm a born Catholic, and we have something where we have to say confessions. I have to give you a confession now. when I was a corporate director of the Waldorf Astoria at the Hilton, I developed systems which were just so brilliant. I mean, really brilliant. Then I moved into the field to launch the Australian division, and I had to fulfill the brilliant system which I developed, and it was terrible. Because, again, you can't repeat this. Because I had to implement the stuff which I developed at the corporate level, but it wasn't practical because I spent more time pushing pencils on my little basic computer in those days than I lost the connectivity to my staff and to the operating theater. So it's very important, and this is why CLU, of course, as gatekeepers, how do you sort out this mess of everything going on, artificial intelligence, IoTs, to sort it and then see does it actually work for the guys in the field. You might have brilliant ideas. So it's interesting how now you're connected, and this was this earlier brilliant graph I showed you and you all ignored, on the value line. IT now is connected to every facet of the industry, but you need to have people who understand the operational need. To have a successful operation and then a dying patient just doesn't work so well. We have another question, yes. If Jewel can be the arbitrator and pass this around.
Hello, my name is Eric Eric. I had a question for the Four Seasons and the Disney person. What steps are you taking? What steps are you taking for cybersecurity since these recent attacks from effects and different companies? Because when I was looking at all the mobile data and all you guys are doing for the programs, I can see like some flaws that hackers can use, like a worm or a DDoS attack to your guys' servers.
So cybersecurity.
Yeah, cybersecurity.
Privacy, important, right?
Very important.
I haven't been involved in too much of our cybersecurity, work at Disney, but I do know that, like I mentioned earlier, parents trusting us with their children's lives throughout our park is of utmost importance to us. And it definitely is something that we're paying very close attention to, especially with more and more data that we're collecting on people on their mobile devices through our app, and with different technologies that we're deploying throughout our park. So it's something that is always, every time we're looking at a project, security is definitely one of the top things that we're looking at.
Marina, do you spend any sleepless night about cybersecurity?
That's my
because you
big-
have private data of your customer
Oh yeah,
frequent
that's my
travelers.
biggest concern, because I am responsible for cybersecurity and compliance for the Cheesecake Factory, and that is my biggest nightmare, the leakage field. How do you manage that? So we are trying to be proactive. We're doing penetration testing. We make sure we're encrypted. We have internal audits, external audits. This is my biggest headache. But the truth is that no matter how much you protect yourself, perimeter, data, you name it, it all comes down to social engineering. It all comes down to, as one of my insurance people said, you can't insure against stupidity. So what you have to do, you have to educate, and you have to make sure that the awareness is there. So a lot of times what we do, we run these mock, here's an email, and we take a subset of employees in the company and send them an email saying, hey, you bought this from Amazon, click on it. We make sure that we have just-in-time training. Somebody clicks, we kind of go, hey, you've been phished, but here's what you need to do. Here's how you're aware about your email. So in general, it's not all of this hacking, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And then how do you manage risk and how do you respond to it? And that's what's important. It's not about, I don't think it's about protecting yourself anymore, because again, you're dealing with the vendors, and it's on them to make sure they provide sound and secure products to us. But it's all about making sure that your employees base is aware.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
not sure if you...
Thank you. We're delighted that you have the job you have, because I couldn't handle this. Big risk. Other question, yes.
My question was on, I know Uber was brought up and the implementation of Uber in Disneyland, but more on what is your opinion on sort of Airbnb types, these temporary housing rental systems, I guess you could say.
So Airbnb, new company, largest hotel company in the world, 3 million accounts. Do we like them? Don't we like them? Easy question.
Well, they've found a model that works. We've pulled in Airbnb to some of our highest level corporate executive meetings to talk about the future of the industry. Airbnb is not going away. It is our biggest global competitor around the world. So I think all of us are aware of Airbnb, and it's an experience that a lot of the population enjoys. From our side of the business, though, it doesn't have as great of an impact on that experience. Remember, we are the touch point to the maximum of a hotel experience. So while Airbnb is within the marketplace and taking market share, it's a different experience. It's very sterile in comparison to a Four Seasons or another five-star luxury experience. So I think it's relevant. I think it's not going away anytime. I think it's finding its foothold, to be honest with you.
Good answer. Any other questions?
Hi. As your organizations leverage technology to collect data on your customers, how do you guys balance the collection of that data to provide personalized experiences for your customers, especially those high-end experiences, with just being creepy?
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'll jump into that.
Sure,
go for it. We actually developed a internal application that we're using for profile management. And it's something that we're rolling out in the next, actually few weeks. February 7th is our go-live date, and it deals precisely with that. It takes our old operating system information that we had in the past that keeps your address and some bits of your personal likes and dislikes, and it highlights that. It makes it more user-friendly. It's a single sign-on application as opposed to it being embedded into a PMS system. So it sits alongside a PMS system. We do have some limitations on the type of information that goes into that, but it is value-added information that our customers have said that they want us to recognize and bring up. You talk about the creepy factor, and that can happen, but it's very close to a wow factor, too. If you think about an arrival experience with this communication device that we have, very simplistic technology from a decade or so ago, the doorman who greets your car at Four Seasons as you pull up to the front drive, pulls out your luggage from the trunk of your Uber as you arrived, very tech savvy of you, and he sees your name on your luggage that the airport tagged, right? And he internalizes that, and he says, "Welcome to Four Seasons, Mr. or Mrs. Smith," and welcomes you. And then he hits his device, push to talk. It's within a group broadcast communication. It says, "Mr. Smith checking in, Mr. Smith checking in," as you're a few steps in front of him. You walk up to the front desk agent that you have never seen before in your life, and you have zero semblance of any type of communication or connection with him. And because he's already heard that, he says, "Oh, Mr. Smith, welcome. Here to check you in." And then he pulls up your profile information, and it gets to that wow factor. But to protect us from the creepy factor, we don't want to put anything into a profile management database that is stay specific or not something that you would share outside of your LinkedIn or your Facebook type of communication, your social media networks. So it's that type of thing that you highlight on your social media networks that we want to then personalize for you. So
there's a great amount of liability involved, right? So here's Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It just happened that Mrs. Smith doesn't exist. She's the lover of Mr. Smith, and she wants a divorce, and then gets a call to figure out, we want to look into this database.
I've had that call.
When Mr. Smith. Now this is a separate discussion for the more mature audience. We want to not go into this, but there are legal issues involved which are quite interesting. Tell us just a little bit. You mentioned the term PMS. What PMS is?
So PMS is a property management system. It's the basic bones of the technology that we use to check in and check out guests. It shows your billing information, your stay information, and basically what we want to do is the PMS systems that we've had and that we've worked with over the last few decades, we've tried to put this personalized information into. And it's not easy to be done. I don't know if you see it from your side.
I've dealt with PMS systems, yes.
So we've decided, you know what? Keep the property management system, the basic front desk function, just with reservation details. And we involve now a new profile management system, which looks very similar to a social media page. So for our millennials that we're hiring, that they're checking you in, it's very visual. It has icons. It has different things that they can touch on that speaks to that demographic, and it relates to the customer. So that's kind of how that works.
Very important, right? So here is Marina, highly distinguished, staying at your hotel. She's known at this property. Now she wants to go to the Four Seasons in Tokyo. Will she be recognized as a frequent customer in Tokyo as much as she is at the Westlake?
Great question. And yes, it will show brand stays as well as specific hotel stays within this profile database. So if it's a first time here at Westlake, welcome to Four Seasons Westlake. I see you're a global traveler within Four Seasons. Thank you for your loyalty.
Personalization. Yeah. Bottle of Dom Perignon champagne, of course, every night. So this personalized approach is important. Any other questions?
Good evening. Sulan Rualcaba, Ventura County Office of Education. We have several students in this room and that are interested in hospitality, obviously. And what would you guys advise for students that are up and coming into this industry? If you can give a couple of maybe top 3 advice that you could get them so they make sure that they're marketable when they get into that industry and they're ready to get in the workforce.
Sure, I would say a couple things. One, intern work, do whatever you could to get into the space. Whatever job it is, get on that property, learn as much as you can about what it's like a day in and day out of working there. Understand how guests enjoy a property. And the second thing is just my background, technology. Embrace technology. And if you're really interested in the tourism industry, understand how it's impacting the tourism industry.
Marina.
No, I think internships is probably the best way to get into, kind of get the flavor of what it is, what you like or what you don't like. And most of these, I know the Cheesecake Factory, we have a great summer intern program that, anyone you have to apply into, but it's a very structured program. It gets you through every single kind of aspect of what it takes to run a restaurant company. I think that's something that will be not only a resume builder, but it also kind of will give you a flavor to understand, do you really want to do this or not?
Good point.
I think if you decide that you want to be within the hospitality industry and that's what you want to go for, you go for it with a passion that you're going to be successful, that you're going to get hired, and don't let anything dissuade you. We're looking for confidence. We're looking for people to knock on the door and not raise their hand. I think that's what my biggest thing was, to come with a passion, come with an energy. And then I can see you and I can relate to you, right? So I think, that's one of the bigger things is, like I said, it's getting the job, it's getting your foot in the door, knowing what you're doing, what you want to do, but then going at it 100% is really, we can sense that, at least I can, and that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to hire for, is that kind of ambition.
It's exciting to come. Some people or some kids are born with a golden spoon or silver spoon in their mouth, but many are not. I come from a refugee family. There was poverty post-World War, not one, post-World War II. And in this industry, it doesn't matter where you were born or how rich your parents were, but it is the positive mental attitude, the love and the passion which you project is just amazing. Can do. Problems will also occur all the time, but how do you rise to the top? And it is this attitude, this passion which you are looking for. And internships, anybody can get a grade, anybody can get a degree, but what you do in addition to it is really important. What I'm excited about this school, this small program, is that we can develop a program which has a content looking at what the industry wants today. And you being here today, I'm so grateful. The students will learn, faculty will learn, and how we can integrate this positivity and this attitude to give the students the tools which they need to survive. However, at one point, the kids will have to get the foot in the water. I can talk about the chemistry of water forever, about the theory of swimming forever. At one point, you would have to get your toes into the water. And the way you do it is by experimenting and by embracing this crazy business, which is a stage. It's like theater. But when it becomes part of your life, it can be very rewarding. And by the way, there's only one life you have, right? The point, the glory of living is that when the good Lord knocks on the door and says it's over, which we don't know when it will be, that you can say, I had a great time spending my time with the companies, with an environment which is kind of nutty but very exciting. I was not born to be a banker. I'm sorry if there are bankers here. I was not born to be a lawyer, but I love this industry because it is multifaceted. You deal with the psychology of customers, you deal with technology, you deal with service, you deal with suppliers, you deal with architecture. It is all embracing. It is continuously changing. Now, if you want a steady job and be somewhere in a box somewhere, that's fine. Some people enjoy this, but it is an industry which can be very, very fulfilling. If you want to go into this, I can become your personal consultant. As a professor, I don't earn enough money. I take 20% of. I will take 20% of your future earnings, and I will make you a millionaire. So with this in closing, any other questions, or shall we close shop? Thank you for being here. Thank you, panelists, for being with us. Such a pleasure.
We have small tokens of appreciation.
Oh, goodness.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Marina,
Thank you so
for
much.
being here.
Oh, look
Thank
at
you very
that.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Appreciate it. Thank
And
you.
Udo, of course, thank you to you
thank
too
you.
for
Thank
so
you.
expertly leading us.
Great
I
job.
hope
In-
you
in-
found the discussion inspiring.
in closing-
if you're a student, consider our major in hospitality management. If you are an industry member, hire our graduates. If you're a community member, come back to our next event, which will happen later in the spring. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
I didn't know so much about Disney, but I will read you briefly a statement on investors' relations, which is a Disney policy statement, very brief. It states, our commitment to creativity, which is never stable, right? There's creativity. Our commitment to creativity, technology, and innovation generates unparalleled experiences that drive long-term value for our shareholders. A very simple mission statement. Creativity, innovation, technology creates value. So thank you for being here with us and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you.